The Lakers get sold, what it might mean for the NBA, LeBron rewrites history, baseball fans hate analytics, but a prime example of why they should embrace them. Plus, what I learned on TikTok returns as we talk with our pal and the host of the Grindhouse podcast, Joe Leo. It's all right now on a fresh episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. Welcome into the podcast, a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. We got lots to do. Before we get into it, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening for the first time, don't be shy about downloading a past episode or two. It really does help out the podcast. All right, so the big story this week, maybe the biggest sports business story of the year, the sale of the LA Lakers. Yes, the crown jewel of the NBA, Mark Walter, the owner of the Dodgers, who's quickly becoming LA's modern-day George Steinbrenner, purchased controlling interest in the Lakers in a deal that could eventually top $12 billion. Let me say it again, $12 billion for an NBA team. That's not just a record. That shatters the old record. The Celtics were just sold not that long ago for $6 billion, and that was considered wild. And if you add the Celtics price along with what the Mavericks recently sold for, it still does not reach what the Lakers just got. It's unfathomable, even for a brand as iconic as the Lakers. But here's the thing. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but when you see things sometimes, everything starts to fall into place just a bit. So let me throw on my tinfoil hat for just a second. There's a comedian, Ron Funches, who does a bit about conspiracies, how he doesn't believe in most of them, but to not believe in any conspiracies is wild. And he points out, you think the government's just telling you the truth on everything all the time, and how he has one kid and he lies to that kid all the time. So I'm not saying that the NBA is scripted. I'm just saying if it were to be scripted, this is what it would look like. And this is the NBA, the league that brought you frozen envelopes and Michael Jordan's secret suspension disguised as a baseball career. The Lakers just sold for, $12 billion, right? Highest sale price for any sports franchise. And remember, when the Celtics sold, they had just won a title. They're the most decorated team in NBA history, but they're not the brand the Lakers are. But just when that brand was starting to dim a little, fading from finals contention year in and year out, facing big questions about what the post-LeBron era would look like, guess what happened during the course of the year? Boom! Enter Luka Doncic. Yes, somehow the Lakers landed Luka Doncic, a generational superstar, an MVP caliber type face of the league, in a trade that made everyone who saw it say, wait a second, did Shams get hacked? Is that real? There was no real bidding war. There was no drawn out negotiation. No chance for another team to come in and blow away the Mavericks with a better offer. Just boom, Luka's in LA, and we found out about it when the deal was already done. No rumors ahead of time. Nothing got leaked. And look, I get it. Stars in the NBA ask out all the time, but when you got a guy who is 25, fresh off a finals appearance, and is elite, you don't just hand him to a team in your conference, the most marketable team in the sport, just because the sake of convenience, unless that convenience also might just happen to benefit you as well. Because here's where it gets really rich. The Mavericks, the same team that just handed Luka over to the Lakers in the same year, just so happened, I know it's crazy, win the NBA draft lottery. They had less than a 2% chance of doing that, and it just so happens to be a draft year with a generational prospect waiting for you at number one in Cooper Flagg. So they trade away their franchise player and immediately get a shiny new one to sell to the fan base. And what year does this happen in? It just so happens it happens in the 2025 finals when Oklahoma City and Indiana are facing off in the lowest rated finals in year. Two small market teams with no legacy, no real casual interest for the casual basketball fan. It's been great basketball, but it's not been good business for the league. So while the finals are quietly tanking on TV, what's going on behind the scenes? The Lakers are selling for billions and billions. And just as this all unfolds, what else just happens to happen? Adam Silver just so happens to announce that expansion talks are officially on the agenda for the Board of Governors meeting in Vegas next month. What are the odds? It's not a rumor anymore, it's happening. And if you're trying to maximize expansion fees, which go straight to the current owners, what better comp could you possibly have for? Well, the Lakers just sold for $12 billion. That number resets the market, and it guarantees any expansion team will have to pay through the nose just to exist. We're talking 5, 6, I don't know, $7 billion to get in the door. So if you're an NBA owner, you just watched Luka get handed to the Lakers. You saw the Mavericks magically win the lottery. Your finals tanked in the ratings, but your equity just went up. Hard to complain, right? So again, I'm not saying it's scripted, but boy, if it was, it would be hard to come up with a better script for everyone involved than this. All right, so 2 other things Laker related. So I'm recording this podcast episode before Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and it certainly appears like either tonight or in Game 7, the Thunder are going to win their first NBA title. And if they do, the main reason why they will is because of Sam Presti, their GM. This guy is the best executive in the league, the best eye for talent. And he's not just built one championship level team in OKC, he has now done it again and is set up to be the next dynasty. Now, look, with the way that the NBA is structured now, it's going to be very hard for there to be any dynasties. But if there is a team on the radar right now that is set up for success to win multiple titles, to win back-to-back titles, to win 3 times in 5 years, it's Oklahoma City. They have an incredibly young team with 0 bad contracts. They have 13 first-round picks still to come between now and 2030. And their GM has the best eye for talent in the league. Those things are not really disputable. So you might be saying, well, how does this tie into the Lakers? Well, their new owner, Mark Walter, follow what he did when he bought the Dodgers. This guy doesn't just spend money. He builds organizations. And look what he's done with LA. He didn't just hand out huge contracts to players. He went out and hired the best general manager in baseball away from another team, Andrew Friedman, who was with Tampa Bay. And then he built his organization where every department basically runs like it's led by its own GM because he realizes there's a salary cap on players, but there's no salary cap on smart people. So the Dodgers spend a ton on things most fans don't think about infrastructure and front office talent and player development and analysts and all that kind of stuff. So now that guy is the same guy who buys the Lakers. So don't be shocked if Mark Walter starts pulling some of those same levers in LA. So honestly, I would be not surprised at all if he tries to make a run after Sam Presti. He's been given a contract extension recently with OKC, so maybe this has to take a little while. But Presti's been in Oklahoma City for almost 2 decades. At some point, he might want a new challenge. Now, I don't know if that's something that would appeal to him, but if it did, there's no bigger stage than the Lakers. And while it might not be on brand for Presti, it's definitely on brand for Walter. And when you're shelling out $12 billion for a franchise, you're not going to sit back and be patient. You're doing it to be the organization in the league. You're looking to build a monster. And if you just spent $12 billion, there's no price tag on having the best guy run it. And that guy would be Sam Presti. And then there's LeBron's comments about ring culture in the NBA, which are just laughable on their face. On his podcast, Mind the Game, he said, quote, "I don't know where this whole ring culture thing started." LeBron said that out loud with a straight face. Look, if someone is writing a book titled Ring Culture, LeBron is not a chapter. He's the publisher of the book. Is this guy serious? Now look, before we go any further, let's be clear. The NBA, it has always mattered more about championships than any other sports because basketball is a superstars game. One player can change things in basketball more than other sports. Football, you need 53 guys. Baseball, a hitter might only get to see 3-4 pitches a night. In basketball, one dude can play 40 minutes, touch the ball every possession, and take over a playoff series. Stars matter more in the NBA. It's the league where superstars really win. It's one of the best strengths the league has. So yes, we've always weighed rings heavily in the NBA, starting with Bill Russell, moving on to Magic and Bird, to Jordan, to Kobe, to Duncan. You win titles in the NBA. Superstars win titles. And ring culture is a direct result of Michael Jordan's dominance with the Chicago Bulls. The fact that he won 3 in a row and then retired and won 3 in a row and went 6-0 in the finals with no game sevens, his career, that became the bar to shoot for. And LeBron has been obsessed with being known as the greatest of all time. Just listen to him through the years. He has been obsessed with surpassing Jordan. And he's been completely inauthentic during the process. So you can tie it all back to 2010 with the decision and going to Miami. He didn't do that to be the best player he could. He went there to build a super team. In his own words, not to win 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. He was ring chasing and he thought it would work. And when it got tough in Miami, he bailed and went back to Cleveland. And it worked there too. But the ripple effects were massive. LeBron didn't just chase rings, he normalized chasing rings. Now, he's not the worst example. Kevin Durant is always going to be the worst example. No one has ever taken an easier path to a championship than Kevin Durant. But Kyrie and Harden and KD in Brooklyn, Kawhi and Paul George, AD going with LeBron in LA, Harden bouncing here and bouncing there. Whenever the going gets tough, Harden gets going to another team. The entire league reoriented around this idea. So he's not the only one who was doing it, but LeBron was driving the bus. So for him to now say, I don't understand where this ring culture came from, dude, look in the mirror. And as I said, LeBron has always been legacy obsessed. He spent 15 years openly chasing GOAT status. And now the fact that he's 4-6 in the finals, and it's clear he's not going to get to 6 like Jordan, now all of a sudden the rings thing, it doesn't really matter. He wants to pivot. Now he wants to focus on accomplishments and impact and the team aspect and longevity. That's revisionist history, and he knows it. Now, nobody's going to say it to his face, but he knows that's the truth, or at least should. And here's a little bit more truth. Michael Jordan didn't chase rings. They came to him. He stayed in one place and battled through losses, and when he broke through, he never looked back. Again, 6 for 6, no game 7s, no hand-picking all-star teammates. So LeBron can cry foul all he wanted. This is not a game that the media invented. He did. And he doesn't get to change the narrative now. He's an all-time great player. At worst, he's the 3rd best player in the history of the NBA. But for him and for his ego, that apparently is not enough. So for LeBron and his ego, being one of the greatest is not enough. He needed to be the greatest by any means necessary. And now that the math is not mathing in his favor, suddenly the formula is flawed. Funny how that works. All right, now to change gears and sports for a second. You know, in sports, we celebrate greatness. We celebrate MVPs. We marvel at dynasties. We hold up the Jordans and the Bradys and the Yankees of old or the Warriors at their peak. That's what we do. We praise what works, what wins, what's dominant. That's what we go to sports for, to see the true greatness of players, athletes, teams. But you know, every once in a while, something happens on the other end of the spectrum that's so jaw-droppingly bad, so spectacularly dysfunctional, that it should be recognized. That brings us to the 2025 Colorado Rockies. This is not just a bad baseball team. This is not just a team that's rebuilding or tanking or struggling through a rough year. This is a historical failure. And there is a point to this, I promise. There is a lesson to be learned from the 2025 Colorado Rockies. The Rockies this year are 17-58. You don't have to be a math wizard to know that's really bad. That's a .227 winning percentage. Their run differential, the amount of runs they scored minus the runs they've given up, is minus 196. That's almost 70 runs worse than the next team in baseball. And keep in mind, this is after they've been playing a bit better. They recently won a series against the Marlins, swept a series against the Marlins. They just won 4 in a row. Now, 3 of those were against the Nationals, but hey, win's a win. 17-58 is still mind-boggling bad. And even winning those games, they're still on pace for the worst record ever. The most losses since the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. Now, the reason those Spiders were so bad was the owner owned that team, but he also owned the team in St. Louis, a clear conflict of interest. And right before the season, he took all the good Cleveland players and traded them to St. Louis because it was a bigger market. The Rockies, they have no such excuse. In a sport currently defined by parity, where like basically 25 or 26 teams are still within striking distance of a wild card spot, the Rockies aren't just out of it. They're in a different universe of bad. And I think that that's what makes this whole thing so unbelievable. You know, this isn't back in the 90s or the early 2000s where the Yankees had this huge payroll edge and half the league had no shot. This is 2025. The Orioles have rebuilt. The Tigers are coming up. The Royals have hope. Most teams have a plan. And even those who don't, they're nowhere close to this bad. Like the Pirates are terrible by all metrics and measures. They're 11 games out of a playoff spot. The Rockies are more than double that. And this was not always the way. Not that long ago, the Rockies weren't like this. 2017, 2018, they were a playoff team. Back-to-back seasons. They had really good players. Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Charlie Blackmon. They had a rotation. They had some real juice. But when you really get into why they are this bad, it's more disturbing the deeper you go, because this is not a tank job. We've seen plenty of major league teams tank with an end goal in mind. The Orioles did it a few years ago. The White Sox, I think, are doing it right now. The Astros did it before their World Series runs. The Cubs before their championship. The scary thing is the Rockies are actually trying. They're spending money. They have a payroll of $120 million this year. That's 21st in baseball, which might not sound like a lot, but it is for them. They're never going to be one of the top spenders, but they're paying out more than the Brewers or the Guardians, and they're paying roughly around what the Cardinals are, the Tigers are, the Twins are. And yet they're playing like a team that is just picking guys out of the stands. Their top 5 paid players this year have a combined WAR that's a negative number. That's not easy to do. So it begs the question, how is this happening? Well, you see, the Rockies' issues go deeper than player performance. This is about organizational philosophy, or I guess basically a lack of an organizational philosophy. This franchise has not hired a general manager from outside their organization since 1999. Most of their front office has been there for 2 decades or more. Their VP of International Scouting joined the team in 1993. Their VP of Scouting came on before the team even played a game. Their head of pro scouting, it's the owner's son. It's a family business in the worst possible way. Now let's talk about another term that baseball fans hate with the white-hot passion of 1,000 suns. And that is analytics. Yankee fans hate them. Dodger fans hate the term analytics. The problem is the Rockies really hate analytics because they refuse to acknowledge them. Analytics are a boogeyman for a lot of fans. There's backlash, there's skepticism. I get it. But the problem is the reason why all these teams use analytics is because they work when you know how to read the numbers. Every successful team uses any edge they can get. The Rockies, not them. They're not even in the conversation. Last year, Jeff Hoffman, who used to pitch there, said, shoot, in Colorado, we really didn't have an analytics department. I'm not even sure if they have one right now, judging by how everything's going there. And it's not just Hoffman. Everyone talks about how the Rockies are like this. Executives, players, scouts, analysts, they speak about the organization like it's a punchline. And it is. They are not a professional organization on the cutting edge. They are run like a mom and pop store going up against Costco and Walmart. They have no internal pitch grading system, no discernible player development pipeline. In an era of high-speed cameras and motion capture and pitching labs, the Rockies are still using clipboards and relying on their gut. One talent evaluator said it's like a living museum. But the Rockies have another problem as well. Despite all this failure, despite being one of the worst teams in possibly the history of the sport, fans still show up. They still draw 30,000 a night. So that's not a team being rejected by its city. It's a team being embraced even in failure. And look, Coors Field is beautiful. The views are stunning. The weather is perfect. And maybe that's part of the problem. Because if people keep coming, if the money keeps flowing in, why would ever ownership feel the pressure to change? Look, we've seen what dead franchises look like. We saw it in Oakland where ownership basically ghosted the fan base. We see it right now in Pittsburgh where the fans have been gaslit into thinking, next year it's going to be better. The Rockies aren't quite there yet, but it's hard to imagine how they couldn't be there yet. So it's hard to believe, but it certainly seems like the Rockies have not hit rock bottom. Because to hit rock bottom, you have to realize, you know what? There needs to be that moment of clarity where you say we can't keep living like this. But for that to happen, someone in charge has to recognize there's a problem. And in Colorado, it certainly seems like the people calling the shots are unaware that the house is on fire. And when you're still drawing 30,000 fans, who needs introspection? Because when it's this bad, ownership is the problem. Keep in mind, this is the same ownership group that during the pandemic season decided not to rehire their clubhouse staff. Instead, they used full-time front office employees including members of the analytics and player development teams, to be the clubbies, to shine guys' shoes and wash jock straps and go on tobacco runs for players. Yeah, the analytics department was folding laundry after the game and putting in a full day's work on player development. Nothing says we value innovation quite like treating your data team like camp counselors. So look, I get it. Analytics can absolutely drive you up a wall as a baseball fan. Sometimes it feels like you're watching spreadsheets play the game. But the alternative, I would say, look at the Rockies. That's a team that is basically allergic to data. And I promise you, whatever you think of launch angles or spin rate or exit velo, the view from rock bottom is a whole lot worse. All right, now joining me on Gordon Damer on Sports, a guy I know well. He wears a lot of hats. Unfortunately, none of those hats belong to a championship-winning team anytime recently. He's a longtime producer, ESPN radio podcast host of Grind Hours. Joe Leo, my good friend, is back on the show. First time I've had you on my podcast. I've been on yours a couple of times, but good to see you, pal. What's going on?
It's good to be on this show for the first time. I would say P1 from day one for this show. And I'm glad that you scrolled down the Rolodex far enough to L to get to my name to invite me on.
Well, the reason I wanted to, because you get to talk to a lot of sports talk radio callers. And with the Yankees' recent slump, is it safe to say that the Yankee fan has responded to the Yankee slump with the calm and level-headedness that we've come to expect from the fan base?
I would say, and you know this well from taking a lot of those calls, the stereotypical, what are the Yankees doing? Fire Boone. They can't hit. They can't base run. This pitching stinks. Get rid of Dominguez. Those callers are now back. They've climbed out from underneath their rocks to dial the phones, and they're back. And it's officially Yankee season, because it's not Yankee season until those callers start to voice their opinions.
I had Chris Carlin on an episode a couple of weeks, maybe a week ago or so, and I said with him doing national stuff all the time, you have to talk about the Cowboys. I was trying to come up with the New York local topic that is the Cowboys topic for national, and to me, it's the Fire Boone calls, Aaron Boone focus. Would you agree with that as the New York local version of the Dallas Cowboys nationally?
I would say to pair that, Cashman as well. The Fire Brian Cashman group, which is starting now and will only get louder as the trade deadline approaches closer. I would say those two groups, no matter what time of year it is, you could fire up. How do you think Aaron Boone is doing? What do you think of the job of Brian Cashman since 2009? And you will have a full bank of calls in the opposition of both of those two gentlemen.
Yeah, I feel like the battle on Cashman is long over. That war he's not getting fired ever. He is basically a Steinbrenner child at this point. Probably Boone is the same way, because it's hard to know where Cashman ends and Boone begins. It's like they've become like one entity altogether. But yeah, I guess the Boone crowd is still focused on that and expecting that the Yankees are going to fire Aaron Boone and bring in Earl Weaver or somebody along those lines.
The one thing that I will say, since Aaron Hicks, Josh Donaldson, there isn't a player that the fan base has kind of circled around to say we need to get rid of him. I would say the early leader in the clubhouse is Jason Dominguez, but as of right now, there is not that one player that the fan base has kind of targeted all their arrows towards.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to have one, right? Like Rodon is pitched better this year. Volpe has taken a step forward. Volpe is a little bit of that as well for the Yankee fan base. But yeah, I guess Dominguez would have to be it, because the Yankees, I know the recent slump is not great evidence of it, but at least in terms of offense, they have at least removed the automatic outs from the lineup, right? Like there's not that guy that has an OPS of 500 or, something along, Josh Donaldson days or Aaron Hicks, where it was just an automatic out. So that kind of gives me hope. I know it doesn't feel like that right now, but it gives me hope that this is just the typical slump that happens, especially for the Yankees around this time of year every single year. And even though it comes with the Yankees in first place, you would think from the Yankee fan base reaction that they have somehow been eliminated from the playoffs while still in first place.
Yeah, I mean, 4 for 45 in the last 6 games with runners in scoring position isn't great. Going scoreless in 3 games, also not great. And it also happens to coincide with Aaron Judge going into a slump. So
yeah. Tell me about, let's talk a little bit about Judge's incredible season so far. It almost kind of gets lost in it because it's just expected now that just when you think, well, this guy can't get any better, somehow he figures out a way to do something that you didn't really even think was possible, and he gets better.
He's having a season, and it's been mostly overshadowed by the Knicks, both with their playoff run and now their head coaching search. I'm going to read you 4 seasons from 4 Hall of Fame players that is probably the peak of their powers up to this point in June. So the same season, or the season that they like, their best season to this point in the season, June 18th. Henry Aaron's 1961, 326, 358, 921 OPS, 10 homers, 41 RBIs. Willie Mays in 1965, 324, 397, 1.088 OPS with 20 homers and 46 RBIs. Joe DiMaggio in 48, 291, 357, 933, 11 home runs, 49 RBIs. Miguel Cabrera in his 2013 Triple Crown season, 358, 451, 1.089 OPS, 19 homers, 70 RBIs. Aaron Judge this season, 372, 469, 1.209 OPS, 26 home runs, 60 RBIs. He's having an all-time season, potential Triple Crown season, and he comes up in the order and you're like, okay, well, he's supposed to do this. How have we reached this point, Gordon, where this is expected of a guy? This is Ruthian, it's Bonds-like, it's incredible, and yet we've just now kind of expected him to do this.
Yeah, well, look, he is the best hitter in baseball since Barry Bonds in my eyes. And it's not even the Barry Bonds of the early part of his career. It was the chemically altered Barry Bonds where he was putting up cartoonish type numbers. You know, if I'm ever able to get Michael Kay on this podcast, I plan to ask him, is he the best Yankee you have ever seen? I will ask you, you're not as old, obviously, as Michael Kay. Would you say Aaron Judge right now is a Hall of Famer? Because he's almost certainly going to win the MVP again this year.
He's a Hall of Famer. And I know a lot of Yankee fans will point to what has he done in the postseason, his postseason career batting average, the drop ball in the 5th inning of last World Series. I understand that. To be a true Yankee pantheon player, he will have to win a ring. But as of right now, in terms of baseball history, he's definitely a Hall of Famer already, and he's not even 35. He's got his career started late. He's just absolutely the best Yankee I've ever seen, and I didn't think I would ever say that from a position player standpoint, having watched majority of Derek Jeter's career. But you mentioned Chris Carlin earlier. It was like 3 weeks ago. I mentioned to him, I said, what would Judge, where does Judge rank in terms of all-time Yankees? He's not going to hit, unless he wins 7 World Series in a row, he's probably not going to crack the first Mount Rushmore of Ruth, Gehrig, Mantle, and DiMaggio. But could he get onto that second Mount Rushmore if he wins a ring? And based on the numbers, I think so.
Yeah, he's absolutely. And keep in mind, 2017 should have been the MVP that year as well to be able to do this. You're right. Like, his career is almost certainly going to be more compact than some others, right? He's not going to play 17, 18 years, you would not think. But just individually, at bat for at bat, it's hard to come up with a player, certainly in Yankee history, anytime recently, last 50 years, who can compete with him in that sphere.
I mean, in my mind, he's the best. Since Henry Aaron retired, he's the best player in the game. And I'm excluding Bonds because of the steroids. Because if he didn't have the juice, he would not be hitting 40 home runs in his age 39 season.
Yeah, the only stat that ever matters with Judge is games played, right? If he plays games, he is almost certainly going to put up numbers, and as long as he can stay healthy, and that's a big part of it. It hasn't been the last couple of years, but as long as he can stay healthy and play 150 something games, whatever the Yankees have to do to keep that, and it's kind of been lost a little bit anytime he gets a day off. Oh, how can you give him a day off? How can the Yankees screw up some stuff, and there's stuff that I hate. Keeping Judge healthy is the number one and most important thing for the present of the franchise, for the future of the franchise, for the long term, for the short term. That's the most important thing.
I mean, and I think he's kind of put Judge can't ever stay healthy part of his career to bed, because since 2021, 148 games, 157 games, the lost season of 2023 where he banged his toe into the wall in LA, 106.
But it's so free. That's the thing, though. His injuries have been so freaky. It's not like he's got a bad back or a trick knee. Right. It's always been these fluky things that just kind of happen, and that's why I don't think you could ever discount the injury thing with him.
Yeah, he breaks a rib diving for a ball in a random game in June. He breaks his toe literally crashing through the wall in LA. It's not, a tweaked ankle or a hamstring injury. He's actually the one Yankee, knock on wood, that doesn't have these soft tissue injuries. He's not Giancarlo Stanton that's going to miss 3 months because of an oblique strain or he pulled his hamstring. He's the freak injury guy. And again, I think for the large part of his beginning of his career up until about 2022, you could say, well, he never stayed on the field. He's played 150 plus games for multiple years in a row. I don't think you can say that anymore.
All right. I'm a big believer when your team is doing something. If your enemy likes what's happening, that's a bad sign for your team. So with the Knicks coaching search, you're obviously a Brooklyn Nets fan. One of the few. Yes. We've actually found somebody who actually roots for the Brooklyn Nets to have them on the podcast.
Might be the only one in the history of the show.
It might be the only, very well might be the only one of the. I don't know how long this podcast will last, but it's certainly a very good chance that you're going to be the only Brooklyn Nets fan that will ever be on this podcast. The fact that the Knicks coaching search has gone on this long, is this a sign of them just doing a thorough search because they are the only team looking for a coach? Or are you enjoying the fact that we're, a couple of weeks away now from Tom Thibodeau getting fired, and the Knicks don't seem like they're ready to announce anything anytime soon?
As a Net fan, I'm overjoyed. This is exactly what I want to have happen, is James Dolan to just creep back into the offices.
It does feel that way.
At One Penn and just go absolutely crazy in terms of shaking up the snow globe. Gordon, you know this. The Knicks were actually sustainable. They were a model franchise. You wanted to do what the Knicks were doing the past couple of years, and then 72 hours after their best season in a quarter of a century, they fire the best head coach that they've had since the 90s. So I'm very happy. I'm also very confused as to what they're doing. I don't understand why you would fire a coach like that for a grouping of coaches that at best could be a lead Tibbs assistant. And it seems like this team right now is a rudderless ship, and you're just waiting for the notification that the Knicks have hired a head coach. And I have a feeling you're going to look at the screen for about 10 seconds and go, who? Okay. Well, how does that impact the rest of the offseason? And if I were to make a judgment as to who it would be, the further and further this goes along, I would say it's Johnny Bryant, the lead assistant for Cleveland, former lead assistant for Tibbs, just because there has to be another corresponding move. This has to be, if you think this team is that close to a title, you have to make a trade where it shakes up everybody else in that locker room, and you go, we're expediting our championship window to this year and next year.
When it first happened, it felt like, okay, you make that move after your most successful season in forever. You have somebody in mind that, especially with Leon Rose, the agent behind the scenes, he's got back channel ways of figuring out things. So I thought, yeah, it's going to be Jason Kidd at some point. The further we get into this, it's not just that they didn't think that Tibbs could take this team to the next level. It feels like they think that just about anybody could do a better job than Tibbs, and that I completely disagree with.
What it reminds me of, and this is really close to home for me, is when the Nets fired Kenny Atkinson in favor of Steve Nash, because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant did not want to play for Kenny Atkinson. I'm not saying that Karl Anthony Towns or OG Anunoby got Tibbs fired, but it seems like, because this is a players' league, that the players got Tibbs fired and they're going to pick their next head coach. And when you do that, that's when you start to unravel as an organization. Again, because I know it firsthand. And the further and further you go along, you look at the coaches that are free agents, the Taylor Jenkins, the Mike Malones, their track record doesn't really line up with what it seems like the players want. So I hope, as a Net fan, this is the beginning of the end because of all those unprotected picks at the end of the decade.
Right. You got vested interest in this.
But if you put odds on, will the Knicks get this right or will it blow up in their face? I think you have to start leaning. It's going to blow up in their face. And last year was the peak of what this could be.
It definitely has a little bit of Donnie Walsh vibes again, yes, as a Knicks fan. Now, look, I have to see who it actually is because it doesn't really feel like there's anybody lined up right now that you would say is the favorite for the job. But it feels a little bit like, hey, here comes somebody who has gotten things turned around. And then as soon as it seems like, hey, bright days are ahead, the owner kind of puts his thumb on the scale and gets everything all thrown off.
What I would ask any Knicks fan and there's a lot that wanted to fire Tibbs after every single loss.
My God, he was always the scapegoat. Yes, of course.
I would ask those Knicks fans, okay, well, now that Tibbs is fired, who do you think in the open market, and we can include all the coaches that the Knicks have tried to reach out and work out a trade and all those teams denied them, do you think any of those coaches could get this roster as currently constituted further in the playoffs? And I don't think there is one. There's not.
Well, whoever's the next guy that comes, I don't know who it's going to be, but we all know what the mission statement is for whoever that next coach is. You have to not only get to an NBA Finals and win a championship in year number one.
And that's a very hard thing to do.
And that might be why they're having a hard time finding a coach.
I don't think there's a guy. Pat Riley is not going to do the reverse and fax the Miami Heat, thanks for all the memories, I'm going back up to I-95 to Madison Square Garden to win this damn thing. That's not happening. So I'm scratching my head as to what the plan is here, because again, it doesn't really seem like there is one. And I get it. You're the only job on the market. But then you kind of circle back to, well, how desirable really is this Knick job, given the expectations and given the pressure of New York? Disregard the championship or bust expectations. New York's a basketball city. You just saw 7th Avenue during this playoff run. They threw a parade down 7th Avenue after winning the second round. So that's your expectation. It's very lofty. And again, I don't think there's a guy on planet Earth that could fill that role and take this team further than Tibbs.
All right, it's about a month or so before minicamp. I'm a big believer when the Jets have no expectations, that's the time to look out. When they do have expectations, it's going to be a disaster. I kind of felt like with the new coach and Justin Fields at quarterback, we were going to go into a season without any expectations. Now, all of a sudden, as we get closer to the training camp, I'm reading, the Jets are going to be exciting this year. It's going to be a different year. Where are you and what are your realistic expectations for Jet season as we sit here late June?
My expectations is 4 wins.
Low.
This is it's year one of another rebuild. It is yet another rookie head coach that was a defensive coordinator. I would like to ask Woody Johnson how the last 3 head coaches that were rookie head coaches that were defensive coordinators, how those worked out. And it's just going to be another year without the playoffs. We're in a division where you could say we are the worst team in the division or the second worst team in the division, however you view the Miami Dolphins. We have a team in the Buffalo Bills that we're nowhere close to beating. And the New England Patriots did what we should have done and hired Mike Vrabel. And I think that's at least worth 2 or 3 more wins on the Patriots scale. So that's a borderline playoff team in New England. The schedule, I don't want to get into the schedule. Everyone says their schedule's hard. You go ask Giant fans. They think it's the worst schedule in the history of the NFL.
Since the schedules have, for 75 years now, the Jets somehow have gotten a bad break on the schedule. It's amazing how every year that happens.
I don't want to hear that. But it's the Jets we're also talking about. I could see them beating Pittsburgh. I could. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Mike Tomlin's going to, put a masterclass on Aaron Glenn in his first NFL game as a head coach. But if the Jets win week 1, they beat Aaron Rodgers, they beat the big bad Steelers, the Jets are going to the Super Bowl, and then they have a stretch of games where really the only win is against your Dolphins, potentially, depending on who's playing quarterback, week 4 on Monday Night Football. So my expectations are as low as you could possibly get.
That's good. I'm a big believer. The key to life, not just sports, the key to life is losing expectations, because expectations are the thief of joy. They just look at Yankee fans. Who has higher expectations every single year than Yankee fans? And do they seem well adjusted? Do they seem happy? No, not at all. So I think that's the right approach. Go into the season with absolutely no expectations, and then you can be pleasantly surprised by any success you have.
I would be floored if Aaron Glenn is actually a good coach, because the act that he's put on, that he is the next coming of Bill Parcells, is A, laughable to me, B, very misguided, and it seems like he's trying to be also Dan Campbell, which he did everything in that in his introductory press conference besides say we're going to bite the kneecaps off of our opponents. It doesn't seem like it's going to work, and at large part because of Woody Johnson. And it's very funny to me that we're back in this horse race of who's the worst owner in New York between James Dolan and Woody Johnson. Right now, James Dolan is, fired around the stretch to take the lead, but Woody Johnson's not that far behind. So I am much like you in your belief that when, Stephen Ross, your owner, the Dolphins are going nowhere.
Complete
with him.
dodo with that guy, yeah.
I believe the same thing with Woody Johnson. And part of that is all the mess that came out last year, that his kids are giving game balls away, that they're looking at Madden ratings. Woody Johnson just bought a minority stake in Crystal Palace, which of course that's the name of the soccer team overseas that he bought in England. Having that guy as your owner is it's so depressing that any Jet fan that has high expectations, I want to know what drugs they're on so I can partake.
Well, look, fandom is one of those things that's not really based in reality. So I think it is good to have an optimistic look in life. Optimism in sports is different, though, because expectations just absolutely ruin you every single time that you start to have them. All right, Joe. So I wanted to talk to you about all the stuff that we've talked about, but I also wanted to invite you on the podcast because I am now introducing one of our old radio segments into the podcast, and it is What I Learned on TikTok. What would it be with a Joe Leo appearance without a round of What I Learned on TikTok? So for the listeners that don't know, it's a little game we used to play. I spend way too much time on that TikTok app because I learn so much on it. So we crafted it into a radio segment when Joe and I used to work together, where I will give Joe, and the listeners can play along, I give Joe 4 pieces of information, 3 of which are completely false. One, they all sound ridiculous, but one will actually sound ridiculous but be absolutely true, and it's something that I learned on TikTok. So, Joe, are you ready for the first edition of what I learned on TikTok on Gordon Damer on Sports?
I couldn't be more ready. I'm a little nervous because I don't have a crutch like Harvey to bounce some ideas off of, but I'm ready.
All right, here we go. And these are all sports related. So maybe that might play a little bit more into your knowledge base as opposed to the random trivia questions that we used to ask on the show. All right, number 1, in the Mariners franchise existence, they've had more players experience a ruptured testicle than playoff appearances. Number 2, since the Jets' last playoff win, there have been 4 popes. Number 3, in 2021, in the Major League Baseball draft of 2021, the Angels had 20 picks and selected 20 pitchers. Or number 4, in his career, Greg Maddux faced over 20,000 batters, but only 133 of those 20,000 ever saw a 3-0 count. So I'll give you a second to think about it. Recap again. In the Mariners franchise existence, they've had more players experience ruptured testicles than playoff appearances. The Jets' last playoff win, there have been 4 popes. 2021 MLB draft, the Angels had 20 picks and selected 20 pitchers. Or in his career, Greg Maddux faced over 20,000 batters, but only had a 3-0 count against 133 of them. I don't have all the sound effects and all that type of stuff we used to use on the radio. So if you want to talk this through, you're free to do so. But
I'm a little rusty because I thought this was a segment that unfortunately was never going to see the light of day again.
Right.
So I'm happy that it is. I'm going to go with the first one, with the Mariners having more ruptured testicles than playoff appearances. Yeah. I think it might be you baiting me on a hook, right? But I'm going to go with that one.
All right, you're going to lock that one in?
Yep.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. They've had the exact same amount. 5 players in franchise history, 5 playoff appearances. So that one's no. No, the actual correct answer, I'm not going to torture you to get you all of them wrong. Number 3 was actually correct. Baseball draft of 2021. The Angels had 20 picks and they selected 20 pitchers.
I wonder if any of those guys are actually on.
Yeah, I'll have to go once this segment's over for the close of the podcast. I'll have to see how any of those 20 did. Knowing the Angels, it's probably they probably struck out like Knicks looking for head coaches that are coaching other teams.
I would say maybe 5 of them are probably still in their system somewhere.
2021, yeah. Knowing the Angels, it's probably not a high. It's probably not a high hit rate.
No, I don't think any of those guys are even in the major leagues. So I'm just setting the bar as low as. Are you still pitching in minor league baseball somewhere?
There's probably a guy running a Home Depot someplace. There's probably a guy who opened up a restaurant. Yeah, it's probably not a high hit rate knowing the Angels. But Joe, it's always good to talk to you, pal. Hopefully I'll be back on your podcast soon, and hopefully you'll come and talk to me again. All right, people, that is going to do it for episode 17 of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you enjoyed the show, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And look, if you're already subscribed, tell a friend, share the show, spread the word. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Gordon Damer on Sports.